Welcome to a fine gaming experience. It's This Way Lies Madness, or Bricks as you may know me. I got my co-host with me again.
Somehow, it's still ice.
Last time we did some basic exploration around town, so we're going to look into things a little bit more in detail and take on our first basic monster.
Exciting.
And we're switching over from the leather armor over to our chainmail set.
It is actually pretty impressive how even the earlier armor sets have some real good character to them. It's not just chainmail, there's lots of leather strapping in there. The vamp braces look amazing, the gauntlets are great. Gotta love that hip skirt too.
We're also going to do some crafting right here off the bat.
I'd mentioned in the last episode the idea with crafting, being able to auto-make these things. That little box that's checked off to the side there are things that are going to automatically be made in the fields. But crafting is a good thing to do on your own as well.
Yes, if you've already had the crafted items maxed out, you won't be able to change them over. They'll stay as their base ingredient, and you might have a stockpile in your chest there to convert. So that's kind of what I was doing there. I kind of preview the ingredients here. We got some new ones just from doing the introductory quests. Sadly, the only fresh ingredient here is for elemental resistance, which I don't really need at this point, so I'm going to go for an attack boost instead of getting some extra hit points.
You're very concerned with the meals. You can always just take some of the best options they have pre-made for you, but it is a good idea to learn early on. The sheer number of systems in Monster Hunter does seem daunting to new players. I will say, it's very easy to take the obvious benefits, but one of those big benefits are the vouchers. And the vouchers are handy.
I use one here, as you can see, and they'll give me double my money from the end, as well as a few more rewards.
Okay, our job is to cull a certain number of kestodon. Recently, their numbers have been getting out of hand.
Want to get going?
Oh, fun little tip for a lot of the new hunters out there. As soon as you complete the quest objectives for a quest, unless a new objective comes up, the quest will be over. So you want to make sure you do everything you can in the map before you finish your final objective.
I show off the net here a little bit. It's one of my favorite little toys that I ended up playing around with.
Ah, there we are. Those, my friend, are kestodon. Let's see you take him out on your own.
Now, I was trying to set up my block here. I don't use blocking with my sword and shield too often. A lot of the weapons will slow you down just by having them drawn. The sword and shield lets you move around very fast, so instead of blocking, I tend to play the evasive game.
You just got bowled through. Oh, and again.
That's what I get for trying to block at the wrong time. The kestodons only have 2 attacks, really. They'll have a little head whip, and they'll have a little stomping charge into you. The stomping head whip isn't that bad, but the charge is really annoying, especially when you're fighting bigger monsters and they come in out of nowhere.
It is a great effective tell, though, and fairly commonplace when you fight other monsters. They will have tells before they do their attacks. So get used to seeing those. You will notice some very interesting things if you're used to playing other role-playing games or action games. There are no health bars. Everything is based on watching the monster and learning when to properly block or attack.
Be careful.
Gotta sharpen up my weapon there. In the upper left, you'll see that one sword bar is my weapon sharpness.
The endemic life around here can come in handy during a hunt.
And I can heal up with some of the native plant life. There's a lot of interesting effects you can get from the native life.
Sharpening can be a pain, and for those who really don't like the mechanic, I highly recommend trying out one of the bow guns or the bow,
Which don't require any sharpening at all.
Ooh!
Yep, I get one of the rare finds, which has its own special animation there.
Over here!
The scout flies are definitely going a little nuts here, but there's a secondary reason for that we'll see as soon as I'm done taking on these guys.
Oh, that was a very skillful dive slash there.
Thank you kindly. Yeah, I get a lot of my leaping attacks off at these guys, which are one of my best damaging attacks. And right here, I actually block one, which seems to have put it into a stun state. You'll notice he's got stars going around his head there. Doesn't knock him over from that, but definitely disorientates them a little bit.
You will notice that while turning in the air, you're able to get a little bit more of a pivot. So we don't always have to dive down exactly where we were diving originally. There's a little bit of variance in redirecting as you fall.
Now you might have noticed there, I got hit and immediately went into my guard stance. That is actually the ability from this armor set I have. The Master Gatherer will help you go into a defensive stance anytime you're attacked. If you're having a very high level of it, you won't even get knocked over when you're gathering items and get attacked.
I was hoping you were going to go over to see these.
Well, I can't ignore that bone pile just there. Now this is a little unfortunate. I was about to show off fishing, and he interrupted me.
That's rude.
Stop fishing, there's a footprint.
After the first few missions, they lay off on the forced cutscenes quite a bit.
This is worth interrupting me for. One hungry boy.
Now!
And he will actually do that in combat. There will be times the monsters will get hungry, they'll go off to find something to eat,
New assignment incoming.
and that guy will literally go up and just
If you're not
gobble
ready,
up some
you can
random
return to
monster.
base and take on the Great Jagras quest later.
Wanna get going?
Now, they're pushing the idea right here of using an SOS flare. What that will actually do is, if you are online, it will summon other players who are responding to distress calls.
You're going to need friends when you go up against some of the tougher monsters.
Field Team Leader, I had it covered, thank you, though. But it'll let them come into your game and help you out. I actually find quite often the players who help out SOS and run in to save you are quite good, usually very adept at the game, and it's something I've enjoyed doing quite a lot when I played online, helping out newer players dealing with monsters. Just remember, let them get some licks in, otherwise they're going to be terrible for later hunts.
And if nothing else, too, it's kind of nice when you're a high-level guy, just getting a little bit of revenge on those starting monsters that caused you so much problems. And I like this method for fishing. You can actually use your fishing rod and take your time to catch them all out. Or you can, if you don't mind scaring off the rest of them, throw your net in and just get a couple at once. There's a couple fishing areas later on that are very difficult to get your fishing rod into, but you can kind of toss your net up and over into the area. Could continue the quest, but this is a secondary part of it, so I'm going to go back, restock, and head back out.
Now, the reward screen there had a whole bunch of useful items, and you're going to get quite a bit throughout the quest just from actually going and carving the monsters, but you also get a large amount as you leave as well.
You'll notice there I got double my money with the voucher. My Palico learned a new skill as well since he reached a certain level. He got the Vigor Wasp ability. I don't show that off this quest, unfortunately, but I will next time. Now, picking up those bones got us a new armor set, which I really like. It not only looks nice, each piece has a good ability on it. The head has the health boost, give you more health, boost your attack power. Slugger, I think, is extra KO damage. Horn helps anyone using the horns. And Entomologist, I believe, helps you with bug collecting.
It does, yes.
And the male version is just a little bit bulkier.
Game isn't shy about showing off flesh for both male and female avatars, which is nice. Quality's good.
Sadly, we don't get to see the kestodon too well on her. You'll see it better on my male counterpart, but Affinity Sliding is the ability it gives you, where it'll up our critical rate after we do a little slide on any cliff edge. I like the little blade on it. And we're going to upgrade our weapon here. I could go up the tree for our current sword, but I don't have any of the ingredients for it, so I'm going to try out the Defender War Hatchet. It's one of the new ones they added when Iceborne came out, and it has the blast ability as I mentioned last episode.
Blast is one of my favorite status ailments in the game.
Normally we don't see Blast until, I want to say, a quarter of the way through the game. Giving it to us right off the bat is very helpful. I ran into the same situation where only my elemental resist items were giving me a boost, but I want that hit point boost for this fight. We're not going after any of the small native life, we're going after a big monster this time.
Now, I'm sure at some point we're going to be talking quite a bit about the different weapons and abilities and statuses, so I won't go on a long tangent here. But I will say that Sword and Shield combined with Blast is an excellent combination. It's fast attacking, and any fast attacking weapon works great with building up status.
Yeah, the way statuses work in this game is pretty interesting. It's basically applying numbers to your maximum amount before it hits with a monster. For example, your blast weapon might apply 30 each time, and once it reaches 100, the effect will go off. The thing is, once it takes effect once, it will take more for it effect the next time, so it might need 200 the next time, and then 300. Higher level difficulties will have monsters just immune to the effects.
You know, we say difficulty, we mean that there are going to be monsters that we fight later on that are, we'll say, harder versions of the earlier monsters. Don't want to spoil too much of that, though.
Indeed.
In order for the scout flies to better track a target monster.
Now this is very important. This is something you were talking about before with the scout flies. We're going to be following footprints and other little trailings that the monster might have left, and as we get more and more knowledge of how the monster reacts and lives in the environment, we'll have more idea where it is and what it's doing from our first track in the footprints. Since we have so little knowledge, it's actually just pointing us to where the next footprint is.
Now, I will say, even if you have enough information to know where a monster is, always collect. Because you actually get research points for doing it that can be used to spend on various things.
Quite a lot of things, actually.
You're less likely to lose sight of a monster.
And here he is again.
Oh, there's beautiful big boy. And he's hungry.
We'll just interrupt his meal. And here, I really show off my evasion instead of blocking. Early on, blocking is helpful, but Sword and Shield is only semi-good at it, to be honest. I'll probably still get knocked around by the heavy attacks, if not still sent flying, just taking less damage.
Now, if you're watching the damage numbers here, you were going to notice that there was a large boost just a moment ago where 100 popped up after a little explosion. That's how Blast builds up. And under most circumstances, it always builds up to a 100 damage hit, which in most cases is very good, especially early on.
Like that, the damage was too much for the Great Jagras, and it knocked him over, so he's just kind of sitting there freaking out for a moment while I get free hits in. Which is one of the reasons having Blast this early is a little overpowered.
That monster's really mad now. Be ready for some vicious
Getting
attacks.
free 100 damage hits off every now and then really takes the enemy down fast.
You see him drooling away there, that means he is getting tired. Oh, we got a mount!
You've mounted the monster.
Now, you want to explain how mounts work with different weapons?
So mounts actually count as a status as well. You build up a certain amount of mount damage to a creature, and at that point in time, you're able to leap on top of it, and you can move positions while there to continue to weaken it. If you weaken it enough, it will stop moving, and then you can perform a heavy hit. In this case, all shield damage.
Okay, it's down. Now's your chance to
And
get
each
in
weapon
there.
will have its own special finisher it can do. The monster, though, will constantly try and knock you off.
That was an incredible finish.
I was quite proud of that one.
Let's head back and report to the old man.
And it's pretty impressive. Like, this monster should have gone to other areas. We should have been chasing him around a little bit. I kind of beat him up so fast, we missed the injured stage. For a while there, he'll just be limping back to his nest to go to sleep and heal up.
And a lot of that is because the weapon you're using is meant to fast-track you at this point in time through the content. Because they want to get you to the Iceborne content as quickly as possible. So the weapon does have some significant advantages over a regular weapon.
And you might have noticed that, like, glowing red stone I picked up there. As you're beating up certain big monsters, when they get to a damage threshold, they'll start to drop random throwing items. Each one usually has a set pool that they'll pull from, and this guy was dropping piercing pods for us, which will go through the entire length, hitting every now and then. The bigger the monster, the more hits.
And ironically, usually each monster is weak against the thing it drops.
I think we got a lead.
No, you got a feather.
Maybe. Let's check it out. Hey,
One of my favorites.
Definitely one of the more annoying early monsters you run into.
well, you were right. There's our mark. Something's got him agitated. Look over there. What in the heck is that? I've never seen anything like it.
Zorah Magdaros
Think
poop.
it's from Zorah Magdaros?
I'd like to find out. But we better report back first. All right?
Capcom certainly doesn't shy away from any of the potty humor, but I mean, we are dealing with monsters, and they do tend to poop.
And we will actually run into something like that later on. Now here's a nice, interesting bit there. You might have noticed during the fight you saw parts broken. And here, because I broke the front legs and its head, I get extra parts.
A lot of those materials are used in much stronger parts of armor sets and weapon upgrades.
And like we were talking before about breaking limbs and cutting off tails, that's how you specifically will get very particular parts of the monster. You have a much higher chance of getting the tail if you cut off the tail.
I see.
Now, pesta puke puke.
I'm not ashamed to admit, this is the monster that was my absolute gateway. I had to beat them before I could see the rest of the game, and I died a lot. I'm a big Dark Souls player, so these kind of games, I take them as chump change. No difficulty changes, easy enough. Can't change it in the menu, no problem. But this really showed me what Monster Hunter could be. Difficult.
Well, not only is this our first enemy that will be switching from physical attacks to a status effect, it'll definitely have a wide variety of moves, but it also has some neat behavior, as we'll see next time. It's a very good example of how native life will interact with its environment. And we're going to go back to our house here, and if you notice, our landlord cat here has a little exclamation mark. We can do something special now. Yep, all those little beasties I was catching in the field, I can now put on display in my house. So we have a little rabbit sitting there. Or it could be that really annoying roommate that has a large buzzing insect right in the middle of the room.
That lights up the entire room. Yeah, you're going to be that person, aren't you?
No, I'm going to be nice. Like, I can't.
Okay.
They can have the rabbit poop everywhere. Well, I hope you all join me next time when we take on our Puke Puke.
I'm excited to see how that one's going to go.
It's definitely a challenge. I'm going to try a new weapon for that one, and take care all.